I will not compromise. This is the story of Shiphrah and Puah. Then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom name was Shiphrah, and the other was named Puah. And he said, when you are helping the Hebrew women to give birth and see them upon the birth stool, if it is a son, then you shall put him to death, but if it's a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt had commanded them, but let the boys live. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said to them, why have you done this thing and let the boys live? The midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwives can get to them. So God was good to the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very mighty. And because the midwives feared God, he established households for them. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, every son who was born you are to throw into the Nile, but every daughter you are to keep alive. The story of Shiphrah and Puah, the two Hebrew midwives, is only found in the book of Exodus, the first chapter, after which we no longer hear a thing about them, although the future and the life of Moses, the great leader of God's people out of slavery from Egypt, was made possible due to the commitment that these two women had to God. So let me lay the foundation. I only ask that you lean in and listen up. Lean in and listen up. The beginning of the book of Exodus picks up from the end of Genesis. Because of the Pharaoh's high regard for Joseph and his desire to provide for Joseph's family during the severe famine in Canaan, he extends an invitation to Joseph's family for them to come stay in Egypt. He recognized Joseph's importance to Egypt and extended this favor to his family because of that reason. At this time, God appeared to Jacob, who was Joseph's father and Abraham's grandson, reassuring Jacob and telling him not to be afraid to go to Egypt. So Jacob, his sons, their families, with all their possessions, journeyed to Egypt in order to escape the severe famine that had so gripped that region. So Jacob leads all of his kinfolk, which was about 70 people, down to Egypt from Beersheba, which was a significant place for Jacob and his ancestors in that southern part of Canaan. Now, some of you will remember that Joseph, the first son of Rachel and Jacob's 11th born son, was already in Egypt because about 20 years earlier, his brothers sold him into slavery to some Midianite traders who took him there. Once they got there, the Midianites sold Joseph as a slave to Potiphar, who was one of Pharaoh's officers and the captain of the guard. So upon arriving in Egypt, Joseph was immediately sold. But our God is not only faithful, he is very intentional. You see, through a series of providential events, including Joseph's accurate interpretation of Pharaoh's dreams about a coming famine, Joseph gained favor in Pharaoh's eyes. Impressed by Joseph's wisdom and foresight, Pharaoh appointed him as the overseer of the land and put him in charge of preparing for the famine that was surely to come. This crucial role in managing Egypt's resources elevated Joseph to the second most powerful position in the kingdom, with authority over all but Pharaoh, the king of Egypt himself. So you could say that because of the jealousy the brothers had for Joseph, which caused them to sell him into slavery, their own lives were saved from starvation and death. The scripture states, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good to bring about that present result, that is, the saving of many lives." But you know how we say it, what the devil meant for evil. But seriously though, won't he turn that thing around? I'm sure you, and I know I have, experienced a great turnaround. So what does this have to do with Shiphrah and Puah? Well, just flow with me for a little while longer, right? We are getting there, I promise. So time passes, about 400 years, and the story of Exodus begins. And by this time, what was a family of 70 people arriving into Egypt was now a full-blown nation. It was the nation of Israel. And with the passing of time also comes change. The original 70 have, of course, all died, and the new Pharaoh now sits on the throne. He doesn't have a clue about who Joseph was, and the gratitude that was in Pharaoh's heart during that time is nowhere in this Pharaoh's heart. In fact, fear and suspicion, like a venomous serpent, was what filled him. The Israelites, once looked upon as trusted allies and blessed by God, now seen by this Pharaoh as a growing nation within his borders, too numerous and too strong, who also had the propensity to join Egypt's enemies and rise up against him and the people of Egypt. Israel was now seen as a potential threat to his power. So what was the solution for him? Well, first it was enslavement. So the air that was once filled with joy and laughter of growing families now echoed with the crack of whips and the cries of the oppressed. Yes, God's people were suffering. And as if slavery wasn't enough, Pharaoh did all kinds of craziness to make matters worse. For example, he appointed harsh and cruel taskmasters over the Israelites. They used violence and intimidation to ensure they met their quotas. These overseers made their work relentless and unbearable. You can read about that in Exodus 1:11. He increased their workload. As the Israelites' population grew, Pharaoh became more fearful and intensified their labor. He didn't lessen their burden. Instead, he increased it to try and control their numbers. Exodus 1:13 through 14. He had them work under the threat of punishment. Failure to meet the imposed quotas resulted in beatings and severe punishment from the taskmasters. This constant threat created an atmosphere of fear and desperation. Exodus 5:14 and 16. And as if he hadn't already done enough, there was the deprivation of resources. This was, in my humble opinion, the most cruel tactic, which demanded that the Israelites provide their own straw for making bricks, while still expecting the same output. This added significantly to their burden, and they had to spend time gathering straw in addition to the already demanding brick making. You can read about that in Exodus 5:6 through 14. But God gave Israel the strength to work harder and harder and still produce, which really infuriated Pharaoh. This, along with his political anxieties and racial prejudice, increased his paranoia. It was in this climate that not just an act of cruelty, but a desperate attempt to secure his power, to protect his kingdom, and to extinguish a perceived threat before it could ignite, was born. Kill all newborn Hebrew baby boys. Now, In come the shining stars of this story, Shiphrah and Puah. Shiphrah and Puah were not just midwives, they were pillars of the community. They were more than just those who ushered new life into the world. They were respected and sought after. They were women others turned to in times of need. Their faith ran deep, full of courage in a world that often seemed cruel more often than not. Faith was a huge part of their lives, which served as a guiding light in the face of uncertainty. So when Pharaoh's decree echoed through the Israelite settlements that the midwives were to kill all newborn male children, the words hung in the air heavy with dread. Some may have whispered of compliance, their voices hushed with terror because they were aware of Pharaoh's wrath, and we are all aware that the instinct of self-preservation is indeed a natural and powerful force. So those who feared for their very lives would go along with what Pharaoh said. Besides, who would dare defy the most powerful man in Egypt? Most would not, as the fear of defiance was palpable, a suffocating, strong plastic bag that threatened to smother any hope of resistance. But Shiphrah and Puah weren't just midwives. They were also guardians, strategists, and beacons of hope. They may have been joined by a silent sisterhood of a few courageous souls who chose a different path. In their hearts, a stronger voice other than Pharaoh's resonated, a voice that spoke of the sanctity of life, of the promise of a future. Shiphrah and Puah, well, they chose defiance. They chose life, not for themselves, but for the newborn baby boys. They became more than just midwives. They became protectors and guardians of hope in a time of despair. Their courage became a beacon of resistance against the darkness of oppression. They were women who, in the face of impossible odds, chose life, chose faith, and changed the course of history. It was because of how God used them that the mighty leader of God's people, Moses, was born. It's because they chose to stand against tyranny, because they chose to stand against infanticide, because they chose their reverence and faith in God that a baby named Moses survived death. Moses' impact on us as Christians today is profound and foundational. While he was born into slavery during the time of Hebrew persecution, there had already been a call on his life from God, so he had to be saved from death. He was raised in Pharaoh's household. He was called by God through a burning bush. He recognized him as a key Old Testament prophet whose life and the laws he received foreshadowed Jesus Christ. The 10 Commandments given through Moses provide a moral framework that Jesus himself affirmed and built upon with all his teaching. The Exodus story led by Moses is seen as a powerful parallel to our salvation through Christ, representing deliverance from the bondage of sin into spiritual freedom. If Moses had been killed as a baby, the entire trajectory of our salvation history as we know it would have been drastically altered. The foundational covenant between God and the Israelites, the giving of the law, the Exodus event, all crucial elements of the Old Testament narrative that Jesus fulfilled would not have occurred through him. We would have missed the powerful prophecies and foreshadowing of Christ's coming, the rich theological understanding of God's justice and mercy demonstrated in the law, and the enduring symbol of liberation from oppression that the Exodus provides. Without Moses, the Old Testament narrative leading to Jesus would be incomplete, significantly impacting our understanding of God's plan for humanity and the context of Christ's life and ministry. We thank God for the midwives because had there been no Shiphrah and Puah, there would be no Exodus, or at least a totally different one. And because of their steadfast faith, because they chose life for the newborn Hebrew boys over death, God chose to honor them. It's written that He gave them families of their own. But you know what? To truly understand the weight of that blessing, I have to explain to you why that meant so much. You see, in the ancient times, a family was more than just a collection of individuals. Okay? It was the very essence of life itself. It was the thread that connected generations, the tie that bind, the anchor that held them steady in a turbulent world. To have children was to ensure your legacy, to see your lineage stretch into the future like a strong, unbroken cord. A large family was a sign of God's favor, a testament to His blessing. Children were not just a source of joy, and for us seasoned saints, grandchildren even more. But anyway, I digress. They were a shield against the harsh realities of life, a promise of support in old age, a continuation of the traditions that bound them together. Imagine then the joy that filled Shiphrah and Puah's hearts when God bestowed upon them the gift of families. In a time when Pharaoh sought to extinguish life, God chose to multiply it, to reward those who dared to protect it. It was a clear and resounding declaration. Their actions were righteous. Their faith was true. It was more than just a reward. It was a validation of sorts. In a world where they risked everything, God affirmed their choice, proving that His favor was greater than any earthly power. He restored what Pharaoh sought to destroy, turning fear into joy, despair into hope. And in a culture where family was everything, this blessing was a profound expression of love. It filled the void left by fear. It provided the security that Pharaoh had threatened to steal. It was a reminder that even in the midst of oppression, God's love can flourish. In fact, it does flourish. And His promises not only could be fulfilled, but will be fulfilled. In giving them families, God not only blessed Shiphrah and Puah, but He also provided a stark contrast to Pharaoh's destructive actions. Pharaoh sought to eradicate the Israelite families, while God chose to build them up. It was a powerful demonstration of the difference between tyranny and divine grace, between the darkness of oppression and the light of hope. So that's the story of Shiphrah and Puah so many years ago. But here we are in 2025. What does that matter to us today? What does it say to us, if anything, today? I believe that the story of Shiphrah and Puah remind us that even in the darkest of times, hope can still prevail, and that the power to change the world lies within each and every one of us, in me and all my golden seasoned sisters. And so I ask you, where will you stand? What will you choose? The story of Shiphrah and Puah is not just a tale from the past, it's a call to action for the present. It is a challenge to each of us to live out our faith with courage and conviction. Do not be afraid, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. as Deuteronomy 31:6 declares. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Let these words resonate in your heart. Let it be a shield against the fear that would hold you back from doing, from going, from being. The world is still filled with pharaohs, those who seek to oppress and exploit, those who would silence the voices of the marginalized and the vulnerable. But we are called to be more than passive observers. We are called to be agents of change, midwives of justice, bearers of hope. Micah 6:8 reminds us, He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. This isn't a suggestion. It's an imperative. It's a command. Act justly, even when it's difficult. Love mercy, even when it's undeserved. Walk humbly with your God, even when the world tells you to be proud. Let the words of Proverbs 31:8 and 9 empower you. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. Use your voice, your talents, your resources. Stand up for those who are oppressed, to fight for those who are marginalized, to defend those who are vulnerable. Don't wait for someone else to act. Do not assume that your voice is too small, your actions too insignificant. Remember, Shiphrah and Puah were just two women, but their courage changed the course of history. You too have the power to make a difference. Even if it doesn't make a difference throughout the entire world, it could be just in your community. It could be just in your family. We all have purpose. We're not here just to be here and then leave. We matter. And in our golden season, we matter. Let your faith be more than just words. Let it be action. Let it be a fire that burns within you, a force that drives you to stand against injustice, to protect the vulnerable, to build a world where love and justice prevail. Go forth. Be courageous. Go forth and be faithful. Go forth and be the change you wish to see in the world. For God has called you, and He will equip you. He would not send you where He didn't want you to go. He would not give you a mandate that He doesn't want you to do or knows that you cannot do. Separate and apart from Him, you know we can do nothing. But when we are in Christ, we can do all things that He tells us to. So keep your ears open. I pray that we as women in our golden season continue to keep our ears open to the voice of the Lord. Follow His mandate. He will give us the strength, the persistence, the direction, and whatever else we may need to do what He's called us to do. My pastor that licensed me into the ministry, Bishop Lionel Harvey of First Baptist Cathedral of Westbury, always said to us, He wouldn't bring you to it if He couldn't bring you through it. So rest in that it's all good. He's got your back. When you hear from the Lord, not from the people, from the Lord, trust and believe. Everything's going to be all right. God bless you, and thank you so much for listening, for being here. I hope you enjoyed this story, this video, and please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. God bless you, God keep you, and may heaven smile upon you, keep you in perfect peace as your mind is stayed on Him. Remember, you are valuable. God bless you. Until next time.